What's up, beautiful people? Today we're going to be checking out Don Lemon's first one-on-one interview since leaving CNN. I'm curious to see this one, so let's get to it.
The tragic death of Tyree Nichols, days after being brutally beaten by now former Memphis police officers, making news headlines around the world.
For national action on police reform.
I've always been curious.
Don Lemon, formerly of CNN, was one of the many journalists who descended on Memphis, and he was the first to interview Tyree's mother, Rovon Wells, establishing a heart bond with the grieving parent. Recently, that connection and others brought Lemon back to the Bluff City to speak to the Memphis chapter of the NAACP during their annual Freedom Fund Gala. Nichols' story struck a particular chord for Lemon. Like me, sons of the American South, born around the end of the Civil Rights era.
That made me curious about life, curious about how things ran, what was behind things, and about America. And so that's how I ended up becoming a journalist, just by being curious and asking questions.
We sat down before the ceremony, in Lemon's first one-on-one sit-down interview since he was fired from the anchor chair he's held at CNN for the last 17 years.
Yeah,
Wow.
Thank you so much. You're such a gentleman.
Rudy's gonna kill y'all if you don't get this interview.
He was on CNN for 17 years.
Well, Lemon's not talked publicly about his departure since the infamous tweets, a social media post expressing his surprise over how things went.
So he says, I am stunned. After 17 years at CNN, I would have thought that somebody in management would have had the decency to tell me directly. At no time was I ever given an indication that I would not be able to continue to do the work I have loved at the network. It is clear that there are some larger issues at play. With that, I want to say,
Down. The news vet has since placed it all into perspective, and the question isn't so much about him being fired, but how he says a fire was ignited in him.
So Don, you say for those concerned about your departure from CNN, it fundamentally came down to truth and responsibility?
I have a responsibility not only as a journalist, but as an American, to tell the truth and to abide by the promises of the Constitution. Because the Constitution says a more perfect union, not a perfect union. I'm not a perfect person, no one is. But I think the Constitution deserves us in order to fulfill the promise of the Constitution, we have to stand up for what is right.
do you think the interview with Vivek Ramaswamy is what got him fired? And also, was he too personal in that interview? Because people think that that was what got him fired. As a matter of fact, people said he was in his feelings. And one of his comments there was, you're not a black man. I mean, paraphrasing, he told Vivek, you're not a black man, so you wouldn't understand. Which kind of felt to a lot of people as race baiting. Do you think that whole premise was the reason why CNN had to let him go? Feel free to let me know.
Stand up for the truth.
News to us here at CNN.
Weeks after Lemon was fired from the network, so was the network's chief executive, Chris Licht. Lemon's dismissal, seen by critics as just one of the then CEO and chairman's many missteps, spiraling the network into decline. Licht's mission? To pull news coverage back to center.
Allowed to enjoy.
Then there were tense moments on air, like this one. Lemon's pushback from GOP presidential hopeful Vivek Ramaswamy.
You are in black skin and you live in this country, then you can disagree with me, but we're not.
I don't believe in
Yeah, so that's what he said. You're not, when you're black skin and you live in this country like me, then you should disagree. You can disagree. I've taken it back. Let's hear it again.
You are in black skin and you live in this country, then you can disagree with me, but we're not.
I don't believe in platforming liars and bigots and insurrectionists and election deniers and putting them on the same footing as people who are telling the truth, people who are fighting for what's right, people who are abiding by the Constitution. I think that would be a dereliction of journalistic duties to do those sorts of things. That is what has gotten me to this point, and that is what is going to carry me forward.
Being true to himself is what Lemon says allows him to sleep at night.
To know that I am doing the right thing, that I am standing up and abiding by the Constitution, which my profession demands that I do, because we are listed in the First Amendment of the Constitution, which is freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and freedom of the press.
As for what lies ahead for Lemon, well, he says he's a man of faith.
I'm not going to force anything. I'm not going to let other people's timeline influence me. I know people say, I miss you on television. What is your next move? I'm figuring that out. I don't have to be in a rush. I think sometimes people rush to make decisions and they end up making the wrong decision.
I'd like to see him be like a co-anchor with Tucker Carlson on Twitter, so we can see basically a balance, because it's going to be heated on both sides. We can at least see if that's going to create a balance. But don't you think that would be interesting? Or at least he should go on an interview with Tucker Carlson. I'd like to see that.
Lemon, who published his memoir, Transparent, in 2011, and This Is the Fire in 2021, says he'll spend the next several months enjoying time with his fiancée, real estate agent Tim Malone, and their dogs, leaning into life.
And I'm not worried at all. People are concerned about me and more worried about me than I am about myself. I'm fine. Someone is looking out for me.
He may no longer helm the anchor desk at CNN.
You're killing it. I'm just being me and I'm being honest.
But Lemon is still a journalist, maintaining a strong commitment to his liberties and justice for the people, he says.
My adopted city.
As he sits in Memphis, Tennessee, he reflects on the city's significance and the contributions and sacrifices of Martin Luther King Jr., Ida B. Wells, and yes, Tyree Nichols in the fight for truth and justice.
If we don't honor them by standing up and doing the right thing and not allowing people to legislate us out of rights and out of existence, then how are we honoring them?
In Memphis, I'm Rudy Williams.
Okay, let me know what you think of Don Lemon. I know a lot of people already have shared their thoughts, especially after seeing the interview with Vivek, but most of your comments were related to him being emotional and I think victim mentality. Lots of you spoke about that in the comment section. I think the interview with Vivek Ramaswamy reflected the thin line between trying to get your interviewee to be objective without you coercing them to think what you were thinking. Because it almost feels like, what I was perceiving on that one, I'm not sure for a fact, but it felt like Don Lemon wanted to hear something and Vivek did not want to say it, and it got a little bit personal, which he shouldn't have gone there. Now, we don't know for a fact if that was the reason why he was fired, but it's just speculations, right? It's the end of this video. Share your thoughts, smash the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.
I made this bet on my own, bet on my own.